If you're feeling the emotion of that future before it happens, truly feeling it, you wouldn't be looking for it. You would only be looking for it when you felt separate from it. So can you maintain that state? Because the only way you're going to believe in that future is you have to feel the emotion associated with it. The moment you feel the lack and the separation, you're going to believe in the past. Can you teach your body emotionally what that future self feels like before it happens? That means you can't wait for your wealth to feel abundance. You can't wait for your success to feel empowered. You can't wait for the mystical moment to feel awe and wonder. That's the old model of reality of cause and effect. Waiting for something out there to change, to take away our lack or emptiness or separation from having it. And we discovered that if you can teach your body emotionally what that future will feel like before it happens, you will no longer be looking for it. That's when the magic starts to happen in your life. That new personality all of a sudden starts to create a new personal reality. And the synchronicities, the coincidences, the opportunities, serendipities are showing up in your life to prove to you that you are the creator of your life. Thoughts are the vocabulary of the brain. Feelings are the vocabulary of your body. How you think and how you feel creates your state of being. So then if you wake up in the morning and you come back to your senses with a clean slate and you say, I don't feel anything, and you say, well, let me start thinking about all the problems in my life. Well, all those problems are connected to different people or different objects or things at different times and places. The moment you remember your problems, a memory is a record of the past. You're thinking in the past. Every one of those problems has an emotion associated with them. So all of a sudden you start feeling unhappy, you start feeling bitter, you start feeling frustrated. So now your body's in the past. So then most people then create a state of being that's connected to their past. And if they're in the familiar past, then they are going to crave the predictable future and they're going to fall back into routine. The thought that you keep thinking over and over again becomes a belief. And nerve cells that fire together wire together. So the more nerve cells fire, the more they develop long-term relationships and the more hardwired they become. The more hardwired they become, the more automatic they are. The more automatic they are, the more unconscious they become. So the process of change really requires becoming conscious of your unconscious thoughts, which means just because you have that thought doesn't necessarily mean it's the truth. If you have that thought and you accept it, you believe it, you surrender to it without analyzing it, that thought will lead to the same choice, which will lead to the same behavior, which will create the same experience, which then will produce the same emotion. The same emotions then drive our very same thoughts. First of all, every time we have a thought, we make a chemical. And if you have an unlimited thought, you will feel unlimited. And if you have a self-depreciating thought, you'll feel unworthy. And your brain instantaneously fires circuits that signal another part of the brain to release peptides or chemical messengers that signal hormonal centers. And when we get that arousal from the thought that we think, those thoughts sometimes weaken, the response weakens the physical body. So it turns out that the emotions that are created from the thoughts are the signaling mechanisms of the body. Thoughts are the language of the brain, and feelings are the language of the body. And how we think and how we feel creates our state of being. It's so easy in a matter of seconds to react to someone or something, to respond to some stray thought, and in a matter of seconds default back to those subconscious and unconscious programs because that emotion is driving you to behave as if you're in the past. It's automatic, right? So it's seamless. The default system causes us to lose our connection to the vision of the future, our belief in the future. And it happens so fast that we forget of that future, right? So self-regulation is the ability to regulate or control your internal state of how you're thinking and feeling. If you're sitting down and you start thinking about some future worst case scenario that you're conjuring up in your mind, and you begin to feel the emotion of that event, your body doesn't know the difference between the event that's taking place in your world, outer world, and what you're creating by emotion or thought alone. Constantly reaffirming their emotional states. So when it comes time to give up that emotion, they can say, I really want to do it, But really, the body is stronger than the mind because it's been conditioned that way. So the servant now has become the master. And when people say to me, well, I can't predict my future, I'm in the unknown. And I always say the best way to predict your future is to create it. Not from the known, but from the unknown. What thoughts do you want to fire and wire in your brain? What behaviors do you want to demonstrate in one day? The act of rehearsing them mentally, closing your eyes, and rehearsing the action. The act of rehearsing mentally in your mind who you want to be. The act of just closing your eyes and mentally rehearsing that scene literally causes the brain to look like you already did it. Keep doing it over and over again. The hardware becomes more automatic like a software program. You naturally get your behaviors to match your intentions because you installed the circuitry. Practice feeling the elevated emotion. If you feel that emotion and you say, when I feel this emotion, I can believe in that future, then let me just keep remembering to feel this way in every part of my day. And this is not about positive thinking. This is about conditioning my body emotionally into the future. So if I maintain this modified state of mind and body my entire day, should there be some evidence in my life as a result of my change in state of being, a synchronicity, a coincidence? And if there is, then I'm going to do it again. And I think that's how we start stepping into that future. The act of closing your eyes and rehearsing what you're going to do begins to install the neurological hardware in your brain to look like you already did it. Now the brain is no longer a record of the past. Now it's a map to the future. And if you keep installing that hardware, the hardware will become a software program, which means you'll just start acting like a happy person. Why? There's no magic there. You installed the circuitry. So that's more important than the news. It's more important than answering any email or any text. It's more important than talking about your past or some dinner. If you can begin to just think about how you're going to do it differently, that's the building process neurologically already. So now you have to get conscious in order to do that. And it takes some time. That means you got to shut your cell phone off. You got to close your door. You got to take a break from everything out there and begin to practice. If you said, how am I going to be in my Zoom calls today? How am I going to be in traffic today? How am I going to be with my ex, my coworkers? And you started thinking about and rehearsing how you were going to act in certain situations. The brain actually doesn't know the difference between the real life experience and what you're imagining. The research on mental rehearsal shows that the brain will look like in time that it's already had the experience and it's vacant of the experience. Now, keep firing and wiring those circuits and you're going to begin to behave that way. So now you're installing circuitry now to use in your life to get your behaviors to match your intentions. If you said, how would it feel to feel worthy of love? How would it feel to be grateful for life? How would it feel to be worthy of abundance? And you said, I'm going to teach my body emotionally what this feels like before the manifestation of the event. You're not waiting for your life to change to feel worthy. You're actually changing your life by becoming worthy. You're generating abundance. You're generating love. You're creating an elevated emotion. Stay in that feeling and you'll behave differently. Stay in that feeling and you'll make different choices. Stay in that feeling and you'll have different experiences. Nobody changes until they change their energy. And when you change your energy, you change your life. Don't expect anything in your life to change if your environment is controlling your feelings and thoughts. And if your environment is controlling how you feel and think, and I say to you, Aubrey, why are you so upset today? Oh, well, this person is upsetting me. What you're really saying is that person is controlling your feelings and your thoughts. And that means you're a victim to your environment. So to turn that around and you start realizing your feelings and thoughts create your environment. And you start seeing the effects of you at cause. You're going to react less to the people in your life because you're going to understand that you'll be back to the victim consciousness. And when you start seeing that you're creating outcomes in your life, you're going to believe more that you're the creator of your life and less the victim of your life. To change is to be greater than your body, to be greater than your environment, and to be greater than time. Making that choice to change your state of being with a clear intention and elevated emotion actually changes your state to believe in that future more than you believe in your past. Keep it up. Keep doing it. That's a big explosion in the field. That's important. It's a change in energy. And nobody changes until they change their energy. And when they change their energy, they change their life. But when you stop using your enemy to reaffirm your addiction to hatred, when you stop using your best friend to reaffirm your addiction to suffering, when you stop using your Facebook to reaffirm your addiction to insecurity, when you stop that whole process and you start going inward and you're no longer relying on those outer things to create those emotions, and you start creating those inner emotional states, you start changing your energy. Now, whatever is no longer a vibrational match between you, that past, present, and reality, is going to fall away.
Right.
They're just going to spiral out because you're no longer putting your attention on them. In other words, the stronger the emotion you feel with some problem in your life, the more you give it your attention. Where you place your attention is where you place your energy. You're giving your power away. So now you're going to combine a clear intention with an elevated emotion, the thought being the electrical charge, the feeling being the magnetic charge. You begin to open your heart. It begins to produce that broad field. You lay the thought of a new future into there. Now you're changing your energy. When they begin to synchronize coherently, your brain and heart, you got a strong Wi-Fi signal. Because now you're putting out a very laser coherent signal. When there's a synchronization between your energy and that potential that exists in the future, but it really exists in the present moment because that's where they exist in the quantum. Now, you start to see synchronicities in your life because you're synchronized to a future, and they come as, opportunities. Wow, that was kind of cool. And those are breadcrumbs from the field, like keep going, you're on to something.
Yeah.
So the problem is that people, they do it and then they get up and then they react in traffic, or they get frustrated. They start feeling the emotions of their past, and you know what happens? They just disconnected from the energy of their future, and they're back to the energy of the past. Don't expect anything to change in your life. In fact, expect more reasons to be frustrated. But if you catch yourself, you take a breath, you get back into brain and heart coherence, you tune back in, well, you're not going to go unconscious.
That's a victory. Like as you said, that's a victory.
So then the key then is to be able to keep synchronizing to the point where it begins to become familiar. And the word meditation means to become familiar with. So now you're in a new familiar state of being, and people say, I'm really not doing anything. Of course you're doing the work. You're becoming familiar with a new set of thoughts, new set of intentions, a new set of emotions. Your heart's opening more. Your immune system's up-regulating. Your genes are up-regulating. Your brain and heart are more coherent. Your energy field is bigger. You feel connected more. All these things that, you're changing programs. You start seeing those things taking place in your life. You're going to want to do this, right? It's not going to be effort. We also know that with the moment they start opening their heart, and we've measured this thousands and thousands of times, when they have a coherent brain and a coherent heart, they're changing their whole electromagnetic field. And we start every meditation with an elevated emotion. And as our students begin to create those elevated emotions of their future, we're measuring what it does to their heart. And it turns out, their heart all of a sudden becomes very coherent. You can sustain and maintain a modified state of mind and body your entire day and keep your energy up. Get ready, because something unusual is going to happen in your life. It's the law. And I know it from experience, and I've witnessed it too many times. And it will come in a way that you least expect. Why? Because if you can expect it, it's nothing new. If you can predict it, it's more of the same. It's got to be a surprise. It's got to rock your world. It's got to catch you off guard, and it has to leave no doubt that what you did inside of you produced some effect outside of you. When you begin to feel a heart-centered emotion, what you're doing is you're falling in love with your life. So your body is your unconscious mind. It does not know the difference between an experience that creates an emotion and an emotion that you're creating by thought alone. Your body is believing it's living in that future reality in the present moment. Now think about this. The latest research on genes says the environment signals the gene. Well, the end product of an experience in the environment is called an emotion. So when you begin to embrace the emotion ahead of the actual experience, you're signaling the gene ahead of the environment. And now you're beginning to instruct and select new genes that make new proteins. And proteins are responsible for the structure and function of your body. So you're literally becoming your dream. You're literally becoming it. The only way that we actually really believe in a future is when we feel the emotion of that future. It's really hard to believe in a future when you're feeling the emotion of the past.
Feeling is the secret, my friends. It is the key to everything you desire. To create the life you want, you must feel as though your wish is already fulfilled. Scripture tells us, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours. This belief isn't an intellectual exercise. It's a feeling, a deep inner conviction. Assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled now. If you desire wealth, feel prosperous. If you seek love, feel deeply loved. Let that feeling become natural to you. The subconscious mind only responds to feeling, not words or effort. Persist in this state, no matter what the outer world shows you. Think of it like planting a seed. You don't dig it up every day to check it. You trust the process. The same is true here. Plant the feeling, water it with persistence, and let the outer world reflect your inner state. Remember, it's not coming, it's already here. Feel it now, and watch your reality shift.
If you actually feel the emotions of your future before they happen, you'll never look for it. Why would you look for that future if it felt like it already happened? Get ready. I'm telling you, get ready, because weird things are going to happen in your life. The side effect of that is the synchronicity, the serendipity, the coincidence, the opportunity, the unusual event that causes you to do the and somehow you come to the awareness, the consciousness, the understanding that somehow you're creating this. And we move from being the victims of our lives to being the creator of our lives. I think emotions can either keep us anchored to the past when we're memorized by those emotions, but also emotions are actually what drive us. It's the energy to create a new future, right? And if you're lazy or lethargic or uninspired, or you've lost initiative, or you have a desire for sameness, or you're not creative in any way, because the only way that we actually really believe in a future is when we feel the emotion of that future. It's really hard to believe in a future when you're feeling the emotion of the past. In fact, many people will continuously tell the story of their past when they're feeling the emotions of the past. So that's what we do in our events. Well, they're 7-day retreats, and the first couple days are very uncomfortable. I tell the audience, you're going to come right up against yourself, and you're going to sit, and you can't grab your cell phone, and you can't open your eyes, and you're going to have to face off with yourself. And we give them something to do, right? By the second day, normally, maybe the third day in some groups, there's this huge transformation that starts taking place. And then we start the event, and then they're challenged. And nobody changes unless they're challenged, period.
It is not enough to merely want something. You must live in the assumption that it is already yours. This is where many falter. They think of their desires as something distant, something they hope to one day attain. But in doing so, they keep it at arm's length. To truly manifest, you must live in the end. You must adopt the feeling of having already achieved what you seek. Your thoughts, emotions, and actions must reflect the state of the person who already has it. Only then will it flow to you naturally, effortlessly. This means that instead of waiting for the external world to give you permission to feel happy, successful, or loved, you cultivate those feelings within yourself first. You begin to think, act, and feel as though your desire has already been fulfilled. This may feel unnatural at first, but it is one of the most powerful practices you can adopt. When you feel as though your desire is already yours, the universe responds by aligning circumstances, people, and opportunities that mirror that internal state.
If we can set up the conditions in the environment and give them the proper instruction, if they can get their behaviors to match their intentions, if they can get their actions equal to their thoughts, if they can get their mind and body working together, they're going to have a new experience. Now, experience enriches circuitry in the brain. That's what experiences does. The moment those neurons begin to string into place, though, another part of the brain makes a chemical. And that chemical is called a feeling or an emotion. And the moment you feel unlimited, the moment you feel grateful, the moment you feel empowered, the moment you feel whole, now you're teaching your body chemically to understand what your mind has intellectually understood. The information is just not in the brain now. The information now is literally in the body. And now you're embodying the truth of that knowledge, of that philosophy, of that theory. So then you're teaching your body and instructing your body chemically to understand what your mind has intellectually understood. Okay, so then that information that's coming as a new experience is changing your biology in some way, and we've actually shown this. So then if you've done it once, then it means you should be able to do it again. And the idea is to be able to repeat an experience. And if you can repeat it over and over again, both neurologically and chemically, neurochemically, you can condition your mind and body to begin to work as one. And when you can do it so many times that your body now knows how to do it better than your conscious mind, it's innate in you. You could say that step 2 is becoming conscious of your unconscious self, and then becoming conscious of a new self, reinventing a new self. And so the person who's feeling really bad about themselves because they're not doing anything to change, it's just because when you're not changing, you're still choosing. But what you're choosing is something that makes you feel familiar and comfortable. Because the moment you decide to change, truly get serious about change, the moment you decide to make a different choice and do something differently, you are going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to be immediate. And that's the moment you go from the known into the unknown. Now, if the body has been emotionally conditioned to be the mind, like we talked about earlier, the servant is the master. And so the person who steps out into the unknown and it feels uncomfortable, what is the body going to say? Get back to suffering. Get back to feeling bad. Get back to feeling guilty. At least that's familiar, that's known. So tell a person there's going to be a biological death of the old self. Neurologically, chemically, hormonally, genetically, the old self's going to die. Just know that that's going to happen. But instead of white knuckling it across the river of change, we're going to give you something to do, because that unknown place is the perfect place to create in. So let's get you into the unknown, but let's get you there where you're relaxed and awake. You're not escaping. And if you do that really well, you'll be in a creative state. So you actually will be out of survival and you'll be able to create, because you could only be in survival or creation. Can't be in both. The first reason we use meditation is to become familiar with a personality that's hardwired, conditioned, habituated, to break down that personality. So you have to become familiar with your thoughts and your beliefs, your behaviors and attitudes and your emotional responses. That's become so familiar, so conscious that you don't go unconscious and default back to the old personality, because then your life will stay the same. So then how do we begin to program new thoughts, right? How do I begin to think a thought with intention and attention, begin to install circuitry in the brain so it becomes the new voice in my head, right? And that's a belief. A belief is just a thought you keep thinking over and over again. What behaviors do I want to demonstrate that are healthier for me, emotionally, physically, chemically, whatever? Could I rehearse how I'm going to behave with my coworkers, with my partner, with my ex, with my children? And could I begin to change my behaviors? And if I rehearse them in my mind, could I install circuitry to jump into, prime the brain and use those circuits to behave in a different way and become familiar with those thoughts and behaviors? And then could I condition my body emotionally to a different emotion like love or gratitude, freedom or inspiration? Can I do it enough times that it becomes familiar to me? So we use meditations as a tool to go from the old self to the new self, to become so conscious of your unconscious programs that you don't go unconscious of them again, and then practice thinking, acting, and feeling over and over again until you become that new personality and begin to see that your life begins to change. In order for you to create a new personal reality, you have to change your personality. In other words, nothing changes in our life until we change. Now look, it's really simple. Just look, just make it really simple. Let's just say somebody wants to have a goal to make a certain amount of money.
Yes.
Or they want to get in shape, right? And here's the personality who's on the couch, who's, eating
Eating
Fritos,
chips.
yeah, and drinking a beer, Twinkies, laying around, not motivated at all. And the person wants to get healthy, or the person wants to become abundant. There's got to be a lot of things that have to change in order for you to be the personality of abundance, because it isn't abundance, it's who you become. It's who you become in the process.
It's almost like this person is out of alignment from the goal, the vision, the dream that they want to have. They have to be in more alignment of the person that can create that and harmonize with it, is what I'm hearing you say.
And it's let's demystify it. If you want to become abundant, study abundant people. Get as much knowledge and resources, enough connections in your brain, so you have a storehouse of information for you can dream what it is to be abundant. Because if you study abundant people, they made a lot of mistakes. People betrayed them. People got stole from them. They lost everything. They had a journey, and the difference is they just went one more time. They just didn't see failure. They just kept going. So, what are the qualities and characteristics that you would have to embody to become that abundant person? And get busy doing that. Get busy doing that in terms of change, and use it as an experiment. Like, if I change, will my life change, right? If I give up lack, if I give up fear, yeah, it sounds easy theoretically. You're gonna have to put your time in. You're gonna have to work inwardly. You're gonna have to do some surveillance on your own thoughts and how you act and how you feel. And you gotta get really good. So good at doing it with your eyes closed, you gotta do it with your eyes open. It means you can't default in your life, right?
Yeah, when life happens and there's distractions and people in your face and people cutting you off
One
in the
emotional
street.
response, and you seamlessly return back to the old personality. It's the worst. But that's why we have another day.
Yes.
It's a new day. Like, okay, how did I do in one day, one lifetime? Like, how did I do? I sucked. Okay, God's not up there with a laptop keeping track. You got another shot at it the next day. So can you learn from the last day and say, when did I fall from grace? Oh, I reacted to that person or circumstance with the same emotion. That emotion caused me to behave as if I was in my past and believe in my past. And that's when you no longer see the future, because the emotion that you're feeling is keeping you connected to the past. You only believe in your future when you feel the emotion of your future. So enthusiasm and theos, filled with God, inspiration, inspire the movement of energy, right? The energy that it takes, the looking forward to, the optimism, that is what drives us to our dreams. And you just got to be able to sustain that state of being independent of anyone or anything in your life. And if you can, get ready, because that's when your life changes. You're literally thinking differently, you're acting differently, and you're feeling differently. That's a new personality, and that means a new personal reality. That's the experiment.
Yeah.
It's the experiment to try it out. So just uncovering that 95%. You can say, I'm healthy, I'm wealthy, with the 5% of your conscious mind, and your body's saying, no, you're not, dude. You're miserable. You're unhappy. You're suffering. The thought never makes it past the brainstem to the body. Get the body in the right emotional state. And then we can only accept, believe, and surrender to the thoughts that are equal to the emotional state of the body. So then, if you said, how am I going to be in my Zoom calls today? How am I going to be in traffic today? How am I going to be with my ex, my coworkers? And you started thinking about and rehearsing how you were going to act in certain situations. The brain actually doesn't know the difference between the real life experience and what you're imagining. The research on mental rehearsal shows that the brain will look like in time that it's already had the experience and it's vacant of the experience. Now, keep firing and wiring those circuits and you're going to begin to behave that way. So now you're installing circuitry now to use in your life to get your behaviors to match your intentions. If you said, how would it feel to feel worthy of love? How would it feel to be grateful for life? How would it feel to be worthy of abundance? And you said, I'm going to teach my body emotionally what this feels like before the manifestation of the event. You're not waiting for your life to change to feel worthy. You're actually changing your life by becoming worthy. You're generating abundance. You're generating love. You're creating an elevated emotion. Now, our data is so compelling because when you truly begin to elevate your emotional state, you could really lock in, to those elevated emotions. Your body is so objective that it actually believes that it's living in a whole new environment before the environment changes. In other words, the body's believing it's in that new future. And if the environment signals the gene, and it does, and the end product of an experience in the environment is an emotion, you're actually signaling genes ahead of the environment, and your body will begin to become conditioned to a new mind. Now think about this. If you did that every day, the word meditation literally means become familiar with. You become familiar with your old self, you become familiar with your new self, and you say, I'm not getting up until I feel this feeling. And then you'd say, I want to be able to bring this feeling up whenever I want. I'm going to keep remembering this feeling over and over again. It only takes a thought and a feeling, an image of the future and emotion, a stimulus and response, that you can condition your body to believe it's living in a whole new life. And when you feel the emotions of your future, something amazing happens. You're no longer in lack or separation, so you're no longer looking for the event to take away that feeling of lack or separation. Your body's actually believing it's in the event. And so then you're not looking for it, you feel like it's already happened. Get ready, because that's when your life begins to change. And so we've discovered that if you're actually practicing this and you immersed yourself in that experience fully for 7 days, the amount of metabolic and biological changes that will take place in your body will be so significant that your body will actually believe it's living in that future.
As we get into adulthood, most of our neural maps in the brain, certainly our sensory maps and our cortex, our motor maps that allow us to move in particular ways, those have been established. You can still change them, but they've mostly been established throughout childhood and into our early 20s. And if we want to modify those circuits with neuroplasticity, there are a couple of key requirements. One, you need to be alert. You can't get neuroplasticity. That is, you can't trigger neuroplasticity unless you're alert. You also have to be focused. This is critical and differentiates adult plasticity in a major way from plasticity when we're young, where we can learn by passive exposure, okay? When we're young, we can learn by passive exposure, or even better, by focused exposure. But when we are adults, we need alertness and we need focus. Just passively being exposed to music or to a motor pattern is not going to allow us to change our nervous system. That's been shown over and over again. Fortunately, what also has been shown over and over again is that if we are alert and we're focused and we are determined, especially if we undertake what's called incremental learning, where we go after small bits of neuroplasticity repeatedly over time, we can get as much neuroplasticity as one observes in childhood. It just takes longer, and you have to do it so-called incrementally.
And I say, that's it. That's it. Tomorrow morning, when the alarm goes off, Mel Robbins, you're going to launch yourself out of bed like a rocket ship. You're going to move so fast, you're not going to be in that bed when that anxiety hits. Now, it was either God or bourbon. One of those two things gave me the idea, because it sounds dumb. Okay, Mel, you're going to beat anxiety by moving fast. That sounds great. Well, the very next morning, it was a Tuesday in February outside of Boston, Massachusetts in 2008. The alarm went off. And I think a lot about this moment, because if I hadn't done what I did that morning, my life would have gone in a totally different direction. I'd probably be divorced. I'd probably be an alcoholic. My family would be torn apart. No idea what I'd be doing for a living or where I would be. And I profoundly believe that you are one decision away from a different life. And that happened to me on a February morning in 2008. The alarm rang. And as soon as the alarm rang, I remembered the idea of launching myself out of bed. And then I did what psychologists call a bias toward thinking. And this window opens up when you start to think about what you need to do instead of doing what you need to do. It's this window of hesitation that's about 5 seconds long, a window of hesitation that defines your whole life. Inside this window of hesitation lives anxiety and procrastination and fear and imposter syndrome and overwhelm. all patterns of thinking, all patterns of feeling, all patterns of behavior that get triggered in this 5-second window of thinking about what you need to do. Because it's in the thinking that you go from being present to all the patterns kicking in and the coping mechanisms that you have. And so for whatever reason, I started to think about getting up and all the shit started to come in. I don't feel like it. How's it going to help? I don't want to. For whatever reason, I just started counting backwards. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I stood up. And I used it the next morning and the next morning. And by the third morning, I was kind of freaked out because I'm like, okay, this is working. This is weird. And I said, Mel, I made myself a promise. If at any moment you know what you need to do, but you don't feel like it, just count backwards and let's just see what happens. And so I started using it in this little count backwards technique, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. No idea why it's working, by the way. In any moment, I'd see Chris, I'd want to kill him. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All of a sudden I'm calm. I can speak to him from a more supportive place. Kids are irritating. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Take a breath. And now I can be the mom that I know I want to be. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going out the door to exercise. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm picking up the phone and I'm networking. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm picking up the phone and calling my parents and asking for help. And slowly but surely, one decision at a time, using the 5-second rule. And the 5-second rule is very simple. The moment you have an instinct to move, you got to do it within 5 seconds or your brain will kill it. And counting backwards is critical. I now know why it works. When you count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you interrupt habit loops stored in your basal ganglia. And the counting backwards requires focus, so it awakens this sucker right here, your prefrontal cortex.
If you're going to have a breakthrough, it comes from your state. You can think of that as energy, vitality, strength, mental energy, mental fitness, right? All that really means is your mental emotional state affects the way you perceive everything in life. So your state controls your story. Your story and your state control whether you do anything. If no one showed you how to get the strategy, you'd figure out the strategy. You'd find the way, you'd make the way with the right state. Most people are trying to get themselves to do something. And what they don't understand is what you do is based on your state. In a state of resolve, it's easy. You're negotiating. Negotiation with yourself makes you weak. So the right state, you'll get the right behavior, you'll get the right story, and you'll find the right strategies.
So the experiment is, am I the creator of my life? And do I believe that? Now, if you believe that, then it means you have to get up and create. Because if you're not being defined by a vision of the future, you're going to be left with the memories of the past, and you're going to be predictable in your life, super predictable in your life. So then it takes time and practice in a constant revision of the model and understanding what you're doing. It's so much easier to forget this information than to remember it. So the experiment is, okay, let me do this for 2 weeks, and let's see if I'm a creator. Let's see if I start having these synchronicities, these unknowns. And I'm not talking about a parking space. You know, people tell you, oh yeah, I'm good at creating parking spaces, and oh, my roommate from college was going to, I just thought of him and he literally called me. Okay, well, you accept that, but you can't accept that you could create something even greater, right? So the creative process then is an investment in your future. And if you're not waking up in the morning and being a creator, then more than likely you're going to be a victim to your life, right? So how do you believe in that future more than you believe in your past? You got to open that heart of yours, and that emotion that you feel has you feel connected to that future, right? You can't believe in that future if you're feeling the emotion of the past. You'll believe in your past more, right? So people who do the work and heal, some of them, that do their meditations 3 times a day, they tell me backstage. I say, why? And they're just like, well, because I started disbelieving again. I started doubting that I could do it. And I just had to sit down and do it again. And they would get up and believe in that future. And a belief is just a thought you keep thinking over and over again. So it's wired in your brain. Marry that belief with a very intensely strong emotion. The stronger the emotion you feel, the more you'll remember that belief. And you're giving your body a taste of the future emotionally. So they had to get up believing in their future more than they believed in their past. I would never say to a person to suppress their emotion. Listen, we all react. We all react. But the question is, how long? How long are you going to react? Really, that's the question. Look at a kid, right? A child just has a reaction, 10 minutes, they're over it, and they're back, for the most part, playing and doing whatever. And I think the greatest thing we can teach children is that kind of emotional intelligence to kind of shorten their emotional responses. So I never say to a person, don't react. I will say to them, how long are you going to react for? Because if you have an event in your life that creates an emotion and you don't regulate that emotion, it lasts for hours or days. That's called a mood. It's one long emotional reaction. You say to the person, why are you in a mood? I'm in a mood because of this thing that happened to me 7 days ago. If they keep the same emotional reaction going on for months, weeks to months, that's called a temperament. The person just has an angry temperament. Why are you angry? This event happened to me, 9 months ago. It goes on for years on end. That's a personality trait. That personality trait is really based on an experience or series of experiences that create that emotion. Everybody has a story, right? And the way we make memories is from emotions. So if you have an event in your life that's highly traumatic, just as an example, the moment you perceive that event in your life through your senses, the chemical information that's coming back as information to your body is telling you to be altered. So once you begin to change your internal state, the greater the change in your internal state from its normal continuity, the more the brain freezes a frame and takes a snapshot. And that's called the long-term memory. So then the person thinks neurologically within the circuitry of that experience, and they feel within the boundaries of the emotions of that experience. Every time they review the event in their mind, they're producing the same chemistry in their brain and body as if the event was occurring. So again, the body's reliving the trauma 50 to 100 times in the day, and now the trauma is no longer in the brain. The trauma is emotionally conditioned in the body, right? So if you say to the person, why are you so bitter? Why are you so sad? Why are you so unhappy? They'll say, I am this way because of this event that happened to me 10 years ago. Which what they're really saying is, after that event, I changed and I have not been able to change since this event. Well, the research on memory says that if you ask that person that story of the actual account, 50% of that story is no longer the truth. In other words, they're embellishing the story so they can excuse themselves. They're making it worse. They're making the conditions worse. They're telling the story and they're embellishing it to some degree to excuse themselves from changing. Right? So if 50% of that story isn't even the truth, they're reliving a miserable life they never even had, all to reaffirm their addiction to that emotional state. The challenge with that is the thought that you keep thinking over and over again becomes a belief. And nerve cells that fire together wire together. So the more nerve cells fire, the more they develop long-term relationships and the more hardwired they become. The more hardwired they become, the more automatic they are. The more automatic they are, the more unconscious they become. So the process of change really requires becoming conscious of your unconscious thoughts, which means just because you have that thought doesn't necessarily mean it's the truth. If you have that thought and you accept it, you believe it, you surrender to it without analyzing it, that thought will lead to the same choice, which will lead to the same behavior, which will create the same experience, which then will produce the same emotion. The same emotions then drive our very same thoughts. In time, our biology, our neurocircuitry, our neurochemistry, our hormones, and even our gene expression stays the same because we're the same. So in the process of change, when you come up against that unconscious belief and you make it conscious, most people get uncomfortable when they confront that thought. And they're stopping an automatic process. And the body, which has been conditioned to be the mind because it's doing something over and over again, that's a habit, is craving the experience because it wants the emotion associated with it, right? So the thought of being unworthy produces the feeling of being unworthy. That feeling then, when the person feels unworthy, tends to cause the person to think more unworthy thoughts. It only takes a thought and a feeling, an image of yourself and an emotion, a stimulus and response, and you can condition the body to memorize that behavior and that emotional state better than the conscious mind. So the moment we inhibit that thought, or the moment we become conscious of it and we no longer accept it, there's a biological craving that takes place in the body, because the body has been conditioned to be the mind. So the body starts influencing the mind to think more corresponding thoughts equal to that feeling. So here comes the assault. You're not only unworthy, you're everything else that goes along with that feeling. And they realized that the emotions that they were living by really weren't loving to them. The anger, the resentment, they were just like, I can't hold on to this any longer. And I think the stronger the emotion we feel towards some past event or some circumstance in our life, the more we pay attention to it, right? And where you place your attention is where you place your energy. And you're managing your attention and energy to some person or some circumstance or some past event. You're giving your power away, right? So build your field, take your power back, take your attention off that person, overcome the emotion. You free your body from the past, because the emotion really is just a record of the past. If the change is to be greater than my body, to be greater than my environment, be greater than time, and the environment's so seductive, and my body's craving certain emotions, and it's programmed to get up and do things, I'm gonna sit my body down, I'm gonna tame the animal here. And when I'm ready to get up, we're gonna get up, not when it's tired or when it wants to go. You could literally go inward and forget about your outer world. No longer think about anything out there. If you could lose track of the familiar past or the predictable future and fall into the present moment. And if you were sitting there in silence, aware of nothing but you, and you said, okay, what is the greatest expression of myself I can be today? And do that exact process. Let me write down 2 thoughts that are not going to slip by my awareness unnoticed by me today. 2 memories, whatever it is. What are 2 behaviors I want to change today? Let me stay conscious of them and not go unconscious to them today. Even if it means how I speak. What are 2 emotions that I live by every day that I can literally change? I want to become conscious of what they feel like in my body. I want to catch them the moment I start feeling them. Let me review them over and over again, enough times so I don't go unconscious. Okay, now I'm conscious of my unconscious, that 95%. How do I want to think? How would greatness think today? Let me review it. Let me repeat it. So let me remember how I am going to think. Let me remember how I am going to think. Let me remember how I'm going to behave here. How am I going to act here? Let me rehearse a change I want to make in the certain circumstance. Let me think about how I do want to feel today. Let me open my heart to life again. Let me feel kindness and care and love and gratitude and appreciation. Let me just bring up that feeling. Let me feel it with my heart. Let me keep bringing it up so I can bring it up enough times. I want to get so good at bringing up this feeling with my eyes closed, I can do it with my eyes open. You practice that, and you make a decision to not get up until you feel that emotion. And ask yourself, can I stay in this state my entire day? And if you can't, you go unconscious, ask yourself at the end of the day, how'd I do? Where'd I go unconscious? Okay, tomorrow morning, new day, new lifetime. Let me go again. Let me try again. And it's the practice, it's the repetition that causes the change. The great thing about it is you can't run from the discomfort. And so the struggle and the challenge is essential, because there's only, you either shrink back into the old self or you step out into the unknown. And by observing your thoughts, noticing how you're acting and speaking and paying attention to how you're feeling, we've discovered it takes an enormous amount of energy, an enormous amount of awareness to stay conscious and not go unconscious. So those first couple days, people are coming up against, I can't, it's too hard, I'll never change. They're frustrated, they're impatient, they want to tell the story of their past to reaffirm who they are, right? But we've done it enough times now to now know that right around that second day, if they just hang in there and they're curious, what's on the other side of that I can't, or it's too hard, or this anger, or this pain, or this fear, or this unworthiness. If you're willing to just go past that point, that's when we change the most. That's the unknown, right? So then following that period of struggle and challenge, if you give people enough information, then all of a sudden it leads to something really cool, which is connection. And that's the most common thing they say. I just connected. I just got it. Like it made sense. It was just like learning how to snowboard, right? It's tedious in the beginning until you figure it out. And then you're like, oh my God, what was I working so hard for?
Right.
That's what happens. And then after connection, it's instrumental because then there's transformation, a change in form, a change in biology. And not only are we seeing it in the science that we're researching, but we're seeing it in human testimony. Like there's the disease, there's the chronic disease, and now it's gone because chronic health conditions require a lifestyle change. And the majority of health conditions are chronic, but nobody's teaching people how to change. So we use meditation, to answer your question, not to heal. We use meditation to teach people how to change. And when you change, then you heal.
Then you
So it's not about like, how come I haven't healed?
Right.
I'm doing my meditations. No, like you gotta, how you think and how you act and how you feel is called your personality. And your personality creates your personal reality.
Yeah.
If I want to create a new personal reality, I gotta change my personality. And that's 95% of who we are by the time we're in the middle of our life. Our set of programs, how we think, how we act, and how we feel. Subconscious programs, hardwired attitudes, beliefs, and perceptions, automatic habits and behaviors, and emotional conditioning and addiction. So the first part to change is the unlearning process. It's the unlearning or the overcoming that is the becoming process. Nobody wants to do that to themselves because it's uncomfortable. And yet, if you're willing, what was the words we discovered today? Commitment. A person uses the word commitment when they're committed to change. They have transformation. You have a dream. You're aware that you're here. I'm local in space and time in this moment, and I want to have this dream of going on a vacation or making millions of dollars or getting a perfect partner, whatever that is. And your brain naturally puts that vision of your future, and it estimates 2 years down the road or 3 years down the road. Why? Because you got to save money, you got to sacrifice, you got to work extra hours, you got to cheat a little bit, you got to lie a little bit, you got to compete a little bit. If you're matter trying to change matter, and you want this experience in three-dimensional reality, it's going to take a lot of time and energy because your brain's going to say, I know you. It's going to take a lot of doing back and forth until you finally have the experience. And when you have the experience, the emotion that's created from the experience takes away the lack or separation from not having it. So in three-dimensional reality, we create from lack or separation. You see someone with a sports car, you see someone with a wardrobe, and you look at it and your brain automatically goes, I want that because I don't have it. So we create in three-dimensional reality based on lack. And so the brain has the image, I want one of those, it puts it in the future, and then we have to work really hard. And for matter trying to change matter, we force outcomes, we control outcomes, we try to predict outcomes, we compete for outcomes, because there's only a certain number of resources that we can do in three-dimensional reality to get what we wanted. You can get really good at it after a while. You can get trained, you can get educated, you can learn from your mistakes, and sooner or later you'll be able to accumulate a lot of things that take away a lot of lack for a lot of people. But the question is then, does it make them happy? So I think sometimes it's a person defaults automatically and they go unconscious. We all do it. I think that sometimes people, they forget why they're doing it, or what they're doing is just become another routine. They haven't really thought it through and really said, okay, I'm doing this for this intention. I think people sometimes give up on themselves and that becomes a habit. They don't really get into it. They really don't really invest themselves, like, because they don't believe that they, on a deep level, that they can change. So there's a lot of factors. Some people would only do a short little meditation and think their life is going to like blow up and they're going to be abundant tomorrow. It's unrealistic, right? If a person wants to be, let's just pick healthy or abundant, right? And this is their dream of being healthy or abundant. And this is the personality who's in lack or feeling unhealthy or is unhealthy. You got to agree with me, in order for this person this person to arrive here, they got to make a lot of different choices and do a lot of different things and create a whole lot of new experiences to finally, when they become this person, they're going to change along the way, right? So some people really may not be honest with themselves to see if they're really changing, right? You know when you're really changing because you stop talking about it, right? That's when you know you're getting close.
But 99% of the people, they don't change.
That's true. A lot of people, default automatically back to the same personality. And they understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. If we can set up the conditions in the environment and give them the proper instruction, if they can get their behaviors to match their intentions, if they can get their actions equal to their thoughts, if they can get their mind and body working together, they're going to have a new experience. Now, experience enriches circuitry in the brain. That's what experiences does. The moment those neurons begin to string into place, though, another part of the brain makes a chemical. And that chemical is called a feeling or an emotion. And the moment you feel unlimited, the moment you feel grateful, the moment you feel empowered, the moment you feel whole, now you're teaching your body chemically to understand what your mind has intellectually understood. The information is just not in the brain now. The information now is literally in the body. And now you're embodying the truth of that knowledge, of that philosophy, of that theory. So then you're teaching your body and instructing your body chemically to understand what your mind has intellectually understood. Okay, so then that information that's coming as a new experience is changing your biology in some way, and we've actually shown this. So then if you've done it once, then it means you should be able to do it again. And the idea is to be able to repeat an experience. And if you can repeat it over and over again, both neurologically and chemically, neurochemically, you can condition your mind and body to begin to work as one. And when you can do it so many times that your body now knows how to do it better than your conscious mind, it's innate in you. It's an experiment, right? It's an experiment. Life is an experiment. So if your personality creates your personal reality, and your personality is made up of how you think, how you act, and how you feel, if you keep thinking the same way, you keep acting the same way, you keep feeling the same way, your life is going to stay the same because you're the same. So the experiment is, okay, let me begin to think differently. So I got to remind myself how I do want to think, and I have to remind myself of how I no longer want to think, so I don't default and go unconscious. Let me remind myself how I'm going to behave so that I could actually get my behaviors to match my intentions. And let me remind myself of how I'm going to feel. If I'm able to succeed in that day, then there should be some change in my life. It's the experiment. And if it doesn't change, that doesn't mean the law doesn't work for you. It's just you're not that good yet. You just got to keep practicing, right? So the act of disconnecting from your life long enough to remind yourself of who you do want to be and who you no longer want to be, that experiment then is the experiment called life. So 95% of who we are by the middle of our life is an unconscious set of thoughts, behaviors, and emotions that are automatically programmed into our biology. So the first step to change is not thinking positively. You got to become conscious of those unconscious thoughts when you decide to make a different choice and it doesn't feel familiar. The thought that says, start tomorrow, it's too hard, just do it anyway, go ahead and make that choice, do the same thing. You're not good enough, you'll never change, you're too much like your parents, I failed last time. You have to be able to become so conscious of those unconscious thoughts that you would never go unconscious to that thought ever again, and that's change. You'd have to catch yourself, how you speak and how you act. If you want to be happy and you're blaming and you're complaining and you're feeling sorry for yourself and you're judging everyone, those behaviors are not going to make you happy. They're actually going to make you unhappy. So you got to become so conscious of those unconscious habituations that you wouldn't go unconscious and behave that way. And then, of course, you got to look at those emotions that are pretty much chemical residue from the past, and decide, does this lack, does this suffering, does this pain belong in my future? And that process of becoming so conscious that we don't go unconscious is the process of change. And how many times do we have to forget until we stop forgetting and start remembering? That's the moment of change. So the hard part about change is when you decide to make a different choice, get ready. It's going to feel uncomfortable. There's going to be uncertainty. You're not going to be able to predict the next moment. It's going to feel unfamiliar. So if the body has been conditioned to be the mind, then the servant is the master. So the body starts sending information back to the brain to think a certain thought so that you make the same choice, that you do the same thing, you create the same experience.
Comfortable, this is familiar.
Oh, get back to the same feeling of suffering. Oh, that feels so much better than the uncertainty of the unknown. So going from the old self to the new self and crossing that river literally is a neurological, it's a biological, it's a chemical, it's a hormonal, it's a genetic death of the old self. That's the phoenix. Our job then is to take all of our attention off our body, off our environment and time, and really move to a place where we're conscious of nothing but you as an awareness. And when you do that, that point of where you become pure consciousness is the door to the quantum field.
Wow.
That's where we start interacting with different energies and frequencies. So we use this model to help people understand that the closer you get to source, if you're vibrating at this frequency as pure consciousness and you're creating from here, there's less separation between you as your individual consciousness and oneness. If there's less separation between 2 points of consciousness and you're creating from the field, it should appear in three-dimensional reality in a shorter amount of time. Down here, there's a lot of separation. It's just gonna take you a long time to create what you want, right? So getting beyond yourself and becoming pure consciousness, there's a whole unlearning process that has to go on. Why? Because we're still programmed to believe when we're in that void or in that vacuum, in that nothing, in the emptiness, we actually believe there's Louis or Joe Dispenza, I'm here, and then there's the vacuum and the void here, and you still believe you're separate. And that is a whole unlearning process that has to go on to realize that you're a thought, you're an awareness there. And in that state, if you're truly there, aware of nothing but you, and if you're creating from that place, your thought actually produces a frequency. And if you can feel the frequency of the thought, in other words, the thought of your abundance in the 5D reality produces the feeling of abundance, of worthiness. Your thought of your wealth in three-dimensional reality produces the feeling of lack of not having it. So when we create from the field, we have to create from the state where we feel the feeling of the event before it occurs. In the quantum, you have to feel it first to experience it in three-dimensional reality. So change the information in the field, you change the hologram. This is all a hologram. You're gonna change the projection in three-dimensional reality. So we teach people how to practice with brain and heart coherence to change more information in the field, keep changing the information in the field, get closer and closer to source. This is the greater mind. You don't have to worry about when it's gonna happen or how it's gonna happen or try to predict it. It's none of your business.
Right. And you already feel good too.
Yeah, you're creating from wholeness.
Right.
You're creating from wholeness instead of for lack. And so when you start synchronizing your energy in the proper way, and you keep inputting into the field, then you start seeing the synchronicities in your life. You know, I'm not talking about a parking space. I'm talking about like opportunities. Like, and you're like, well, whatever I just did this morning, I'm going back tomorrow, I'm doing it again, because I believe now that I'm the creator. And that is what actually enhances the outcome, right? So people in this work, they do the work because they don't want the magic to end, right? The moment you feel miserable, the moment you feel victimized, the moment you feel suffering, the moment you feel pain, and you can't think greater than how you feel, the brain's checking in with the body and saying you're really miserable, and it generates more corresponding thoughts equal to that feeling. So it's thinking and feeling and feeling and thinking. This loop of thinking and feeling and feeling and thinking creates a state of being. And again, the thought and the feeling, the image and the emotion, the stimulus and response is making the body become conditioned subconsciously into the past. And so now the person has to feel that same emotion to reaffirm their identity. So that becomes their state of being. And now they behave as if they're in their past, and they think as if they're in their past. If you keep thinking the same way, if you keep making the same choices, if you keep doing the same things, if you keep reproducing the same experiences and feeling the same emotions, Your biology begins to become hardwired in a sense. It becomes programmed. So in order to change something, to arrive at a new vision of your future, if you wanted to arrive at a new goal or new vision of your future, you'd have to change something about yourself in order to get there. And you'd have to change the way you think, the way you act, and the way you feel. When you begin to become conscious of those unconscious thoughts, so conscious that you don't let them slip by your awareness unnoticed or unchecked by you. If you catch yourself speaking in a limited way, or you become conscious that you're behaving in a certain way, in a habit, and you can notice or pay attention to how you're feeling, then you're no longer the program. Now your consciousness observing the program, you're only unconscious when you're in the program. And so to change then is to become so conscious that you don't go unconscious again. And in a sense, that is consciousness that is really the puppet master that really decides who we want to be. I think the biggest problem is that people lose their free will to a set of programs. And so their body is basically programmed into a predictable future based on what they've done in the past. Most people then, they have that vision of the future, but they give up on that vision because in order for them to arrive at that vision, they have to do something. They have to think differently. They have to act differently. They have to feel differently. And it's so much easier to make the same choice every single day. And the hardest part about change is not making the same choice as you did the day before. And the moment you decide to make a different choice, you're going to feel uncomfortable because you're stepping from the known into the unknown. So some people would rather cling to their self-pity than take a chance and possibility. They'd rather tell the story of their past instead of telling the story of their future. They'd rather believe in their past instead of believe in their future. It's so much more important, though, to romance your future instead of romance your past. And I think if people understood that they could actually arrive at it, I think many people have done this already in their life. I think everybody, at least once in their life, has done something great. And when they did something great, they just made up their mind. And they made a decision in that moment to do something or to change.
In the architecture of regret, there are two kinds of regrets. There are regrets of action and regrets of inaction. I regret something I did, I regret something I didn't do. Now, what you see over and over again is that with action regrets, I regret something I did. If only I had married Fred instead of Ed, I would be much happier, right? So we say if only. So that's what's called in the literature an upward counterfactual. We think about how things could have been better.
And that's the dating one.
That's if only I had married Fred instead of Ed. But with action regrets, we can do what's called a downward counterfactual. We imagine how things could have turned out worse. And there's some really super cool research on this. But here's where it comes up in the database. Legions of people, all women, saying essentially, I shouldn't have married that idiot, but at least I have these two great kids. Downward counterfactual. There's a famous piece of research, I love it. They showed photographs of the 3 medalists on the Olympic medal stand in a number of different situations, but they didn't show what medal they got. And they asked people, based on their facial expressions, how happy are they? And so not surprisingly, the happiest looking people were the gold medalists. The second happiest people were the bronze medalists, not the silver medalists, right? Because the silver medalists were doing an upward counterfactual. If only I had pedaled 0.4 of a second faster, I'd have the gold. The bronze medalists were doing a downward counterfactual. At least I have a bronze, not like this schmo who's 0.4 of a second behind me, who's like, doesn't get a medal at all. And so for action regrets, we can at least them.
So I married the wrong person and I regret doing that, but
at least I have these 2 great kids.
Okay.
All right, so it makes us feel better. Doesn't make us necessarily do better, but it makes us feel better. With inaction regrets, we can't do that stuff.
That's true, because if you didn't do it.
You didn't do it. You can't undo something you didn't do. You know, it's metaphysically impossible. You can't do it.
Let's say the person who's listening or watching right now is sitting on a big decision Maybe it's about their career. Maybe it's about the next big step in a relationship. Maybe it's about a big move.
Yeah.
And they're stuck in that overthinking, not quite sure what to do in terms of taking this risk or making this decision. What does your research suggest?
Yeah. So if you're thinking about that, you're not sure what to do, you can imagine having a conversation with someone who you haven't met yet, but who cares deeply about you.
Okay.
And that is the you of 10 years from now.
So 10 years from now,
So imagine you're having a conversation with the you of 2036.
Okay.
What does that person want you to do? It's pretty freaking clear to me what that person's going to want you to do, because it's what all the people in your list and all the people in my database want you to do. They want you to build a solid foundation for yourself and for your family. They want you to take that shot. They want you to do the right thing, and they want you to reach out. And it's pretty clear. And so have that conversation. You know what that person 10 years from now wants you to do. And you don't want to have the conversation where 10 years from now, you have to tell the you of 2036, hey, I wimped out.
I blew it.
I blew it. I chickened out. You don't want to have that conversation.
That moment matters so much in the light of eternity, because that's the moment you make up your mind to no longer be defined by your past. Why are you being defined by your past? Because emotions are a record of the past. And so then if you're feeling that emotion, your body is believing it's back in that same experience of the past. So the more knowledge that we have and understanding that justified, valid or not, those emotions are hurting no other person but you, because the long-term effects of living by those emotional states, those survival states, are actually down-regulating genes and creating diseases. Sooner or later, you're going to have to ask yourself, is this loving to myself? And forgiveness is just when you overcome the emotion, you take your attention off that person or that problem, and you're freeing yourself and you're freeing them. So people do the best with what they think is available. That's my belief. And if you're unaware that you can control your emotional states, you'll rely on something outside of you to do that, whether it's a computer game, whether it's a Netflix show, whether it's a drug, whatever it is that you need to make that feeling go away. You're dependent on your outer world. And I think that's a hypnosis, that's a conditioning. You teach people that you can actually regulate and change your emotional states. You give them the tools to literally step into a new future. So that process, of course, is extremely uncomfortable. And the question is, how long are you going to stay in that emotional state? And 50% of the story that most people tell about that past experience isn't even the truth, because they're making things up, and they're doing that so that they can justify why they haven't changed since some past event. Most people reach a point in their life where they reach crisis or disease or diagnosis or loss or betrayal, where they finally go, gosh, it's time to change. I think change is an ongoing process, and the more we change, the more we should see evidence in our life. That makes it exciting.
Yeah, and I think you're right that I've thought about this for a while, that I feel most people know that they want to change, and most people know what they want to change, but they still struggle to make a change. And so I found that we don't often have a values crisis, we have a habits crisis, because people don't know how to reprogram their habits, and they've started to assume that the way they feel is who they are. And I wonder how you think about this, because I think we're living at a time where what you just said is like, you either kind of find a way to numb your feelings, so you're turning towards something external to numb how you feel. Or today we're being told, well, feel every feeling and emotion completely. And then often we don't kind of get to the reprogramming phase. So I guess, how do you know how long to take a feeling seriously, effectively, and assessing it before you kind of take action on it?
Feelings and emotions are the end product of past experiences, and we can remember experiences better because we can remember how they feel. The stronger the emotion we have to some experience in our life, the more altered we are inside of us. The more the brain freezes a frame and takes a snapshot. And that's called a long-term memory. That image is being bossed neurologically in the brain. So then, what most people don't know is that every time they remember that event, that trauma, that betrayal, that loss, whatever it is, they're producing the same chemistry in their brain and body as if the event is occurring. So what happens over time is that conditioning process conditions the body to literally live in the past. So if a person is living by the same familiar feeling every single day, whether it's guilt or unworthiness or pain or suffering or victimization or depression or whatever it is, it's so important for them to come right up against that emotional state because they're coming up against the known.
Yes, you can think very rationally and work it through and write about it and have conversations with other people. And then you can also allow your unconscious problem-solving machinery to do its thing. We don't understand completely how this works, but we do know that your experience is not infrequent. Many people report having moments of insight when they are not otherwise engaged. And you know, one line of thinking is that we are doing problem solving behind the scenes that we're not aware of, and the solutions are bubbling up to awareness. So I actually, this may be the wrong usage of terms, but I weaponize this process for myself. So before I exercise, before I get on the treadmill or row or do whatever I'm going to do, I will load up the particular issue that I'm trying to find a solution for. Sometimes it's how to word a paragraph. It might be, if I'm working on a book, how to find the right kind of story. If it's an interpersonal issue that I've got to smooth over, I load that up. And then I just get on the device. It's usually an aerobic exercise that I'm doing. And I don't really think about it in any fixed way, but inevitably the ideas, the potential solutions bubble up into awareness. That is a real valuable tool that I possess that I think allows me to have success in various areas of my life. It also identifies one of the reasons why chatter can be so unbelievably pernicious. So we didn't get to all the benefits of there's one more benefit of the inner voice that I want to get to, but I'm going to take a detour here for a second because I think this is really important. If we think of chatter as the dark side of your inner voice, you're basically continuing to loop over the same problem in your head without making any progress. What if this happens? Why did this happen? I'm such an imbecile. You're just continually going over that negative phenomenon or experience. You're not making any headway. One of the things that does is it consumes our attentional resources. It acts like a sponge that soaks up those limited resources. And so what that means is when I get on the treadmill or rowing machine, and that's typically the time that I spend innovating, right? Coming up with solutions that allow me to progress personally and professionally. My mind's not working to solve those problems. Instead, it is stuck dealing with this other muck where I'm not getting anywhere. And so we actually see, if you look at the literature, that one of the ways that chatter undermines people is it interferes with their ability to focus and solve problems. And that's just one way it undermines people, but that is a huge, huge liability.
For the most part, I never really tell people to go back to the event. I don't think it's healthy for them to review the event or the experience that caused them to be a certain way. I mean, insight really doesn't change behavior. You could say, oh, my father was overbearing, my mother was a perfectionist, I didn't have a parent, whatever. It doesn't change. The insight doesn't change the person, right? But what's more important is the emotion, right? That's what is the residue, because the end product of an experience is an emotion. So a person has an experience in their life. I don't know, let's just make something up. They have a trauma, right? And that the event causes them to feel differently than they normally feel. The stronger the emotional quotient from whatever the trauma or the betrayal or loss is, the more altered they are inside of them, the more the brain freezes a frame and takes a snapshot, and that's called the long-term memory. And we can remember events better because there's emotions associated with them, right? So let's just say the person has a trauma in their life, and from that trauma they feel fear, or they feel unworthiness, or they feel pain, right? And you say to them, why are you this way? They'll say, I am this way because of this event that happened to me 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, 40 years ago, right? What they're really saying from a biological perspective is I had this experience in my life and I have not been able to change since that experience because it altered who I am, right? The challenge is when people have traumatic events, whether they know it or not, when they review the event in their mind, they keep thinking about it, keep remembering it, they're producing the same chemistry in their brain and body as if the event was occurring. And so the body is the unconscious mind. It does not know the difference between the real life experience that's creating the emotion and the emotion that person's creating by thought alone. The body's being abused and it's reliving the experience 50 to 100 times in one day. And it only takes a thought and a feeling, a memory and an emotion, a stimulus and response, and you can condition the body to become the mind of that emotion. Now the body's literally living in the past. And it's so objective that it's constantly believing it's living in the same past experience. Okay, so then what's the solution? It's the emotion. The person must look at that emotion and they must learn how to transform that emotion into wisdom. Because the memory without the emotional charge is called wisdom. Now, what our data shows, just about 100% of the time, and we work with prisoners, incarcerated people, veterans, Navy SEALs, Green Berets, all different cultures. And the one thing that resets the baseline for the trauma is when you open your heart. When you say to like a Navy SEAL or a military special ops person, if you can open your heart, it'll reset the baseline for the trauma. And these are trained, individuals. When they start practicing breathing and start practicing opening their heart and they start resting their attention in it and they start cultivating elevated emotions, there comes a moment where the heart actually begins to beat more orderly. And the moment it starts doing that, it sends a signal right to the brain and tells the brain the event is over. And when that occurs, this little area of the brain called the amygdala, the survival center of the brain, literally gets turned off. And all of a sudden now, when the person looks back at the past event, they don't see it with the same emotional charge. And I think when we master our emotions, we master our creations. And that memory now, when they look back at it without the emotional charge, is called wisdom. And now they're no longer living in their past. Now they're ready to begin to live in their future.
There's a technique called WHOOP. Have you ever heard of this? Okay, so WHOOP's an acronym. And I promise you I wouldn't use any acronyms, but this is a useful one it's a mnemonic to remember something. So how do you go from knowing to doing? WHOOP is designed to help you do that, because what it is explicitly designed to do is target each of the places where goal pursuit often breaks down. Step one, what's your wish? What's the thing you hope to accomplish? Let's be really clear about what that goal is. We often don't stop to even think about what our specific concrete goals are. Okay, now that we have that goal, let's give ourselves some opportunity to energize. What is the outcome we hope to achieve if we fulfill that goal? And what that's doing is like giving us this motivation now, really energizing us to pursue it even further. Okay, we've got the outcome, but now let's get realistic. What are the obstacles? What are the internal obstacles that might prevent me from achieving those goals? Right, so let's say my wish is to be more present with my family after work. The outcome that I hope to achieve is to be a better father, a better husband, to have a richer social life in those regards. Now, what are the obstacles? Okay, internal obstacles, I got plenty, right? Like the temptation to check my email and get to inbox 0 before the night is done. Or I love my science and I also want to do some of that work. Or maybe I'm going to get distracted by friends who call. All of those things are obstacles that might get in the way of me achieving the goal of being more present with my family. Now, the final step, let me come up with an if-then plan. If I'm tempted to check my email after 7 or 8, then I'm going to remind myself about how important it is to be a dad. So I'll do a little reframing. If someone calls after 9 p.m. and I'm engaging in an activity with my kids, then I'm going to politely decline. And you can imagine coming up with all sorts of plans for different levels of sophistication. What those if-then plans do is they try to make emotion regulation automatic, because they identify a specific trigger, if, that's the if this happens, and then they pair that trigger with a response. If then, you rehearse that. And this way, when the trigger occurs, boom, you don't have to stop and think, what should I do? How should I behave? You've got the plan and you implement it. I've got if-then plans for chatter. If the chatter strikes, then I do distant self-talk and mental time travel. If the chatter is too overwhelming and those two tools don't work, then I go to nature and I go to my chatter advisors. And so I have these if-then plans that are linked up with my goals. And that's an important technology that I think we can invite people to try to exercise in their own lives to make it more likely that they will achieve their regulatory goals.
You know, a lot of motivational people come out here, man, and run their motherfucking mouths about shit. And I know they are not doing shit. They sit back and they're fucking like, you know, they have their little brainstorming sessions about, oh, what should we say? What's gonna connect with people while they're sitting their fucking ass? My brainstorming sessions is fucking out there in the grip of life, grinding. And that's where I think all my material comes from the suck. Every bit of it comes from the suck.
If you really want it, if you really want change, you got to execute a will that's greater than the program. You're going to bring the body back out of that predictable future into the present moment. And like an unbridled stallion, it'll buck and kick, it'll do everything it can. You just keep bringing it back to the present moment. Sooner or later, it's going to surrender to a new mind. And now the person's going to liberate energy, because the present moment is the unknown. The familiar past of feeling certain emotions and certain memories, that's the known. Living in a predictable future, you know, where you're always busy, you got things to do and people to see and places to go, that's the predictable future. If you can predict it, it's known, right? So if you can settle into the present moment and teach the body to relax into the unknown without it being a scary place, when you can relax into the unknown like that, the body finally surrenders and it's free. Now the person's ready to create something new.
Doing hard things translates to an ability to do hard things, and probably translates, provided it doesn't kill you, to a longer life.
And you've explained that there's actually a part of your brain that grows.
So there's a brain area that most neuroscientists aren't aware of, called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. Okay, scientists who are in the know about it. It's I teach neuroanatomy, medical students at Stanford. It's an area that we cover in passing, but there are a lot of brain areas. You got to get, can't get to everything. But in the last couple of years, there've been studies of this area, the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, that make it super important for everybody to know about, not just neuroscientists.
I think it's common for people, we create based on lack, right? Many people see something that they want, and they realize that they don't have it. And the natural thing is to create what you don't have. So it's natural to create based on lack. And then we have to get up and work really hard to accomplish and then produce an outcome. When we produce the outcome, the experience then takes away the lack, because the emotion from the experience fulfills that lack.
We hear so much about dopamine, adrenaline. Look, there are three molecules. They're called the catecholamines: dopamine, epinephrine, adrenaline, and norepinephrine, noradrenaline. And they are actually, some are biochemical derivatives of others, and they are cousins. They work like a little clan of molecules to raise alertness and focus and drive. I think the great Robert Sapolsky said it best. He said, dopamine is not about the pursuit of pleasure, it's about the pleasure of pursuit. That's why he's Robert Sapolsky. So you combine motivation with adrenaline, which gets your body in a position to move better, and noradrenaline, which kind of works in between those two. It's a little more complicated, not worth going into, but they work as kind of like a gang of three to raise alertness, directional motivation, and go.
And then it's only transient. And then that lack kind of comes back again, and it causes us to speculate, what if I don't succeed? And it's common, but what we discovered with people that do this, when we look at their brains in real time, is that when we analyze our life like that and we ruminate, we tend to make our brain worse. In other words, by doing that and overthinking and overanalyzing, you're narrowing your focus on something. And you're doing that because the hormones of stress, right? The chemicals of stress are arousing your brain to live in survival and say, what if I lose everything that I have? When you're thinking within that emotion, you're actually causing your brain to experience more of those emotions, and you get caught in this loop, right? So the point is that none of that is good for you. In fact, you're actually turning on the stress response just by thought alone. And those chemicals of stress become addictive, right? And so not knowing this, many people don't know this, but they're doing this just for some rush of adrenaline. And you can do that for hours because when you're in stress and you're in survival, you actually have to narrow your focus on the cause. And people become over-focused, and they overanalyze themselves and they overanalyze their lives, and they make their brain worse. Even when they have everything that they want, the big fear is, what if I lose it, right? Yeah. So the fear then is the issue, right? So then I would say to someone like you gotta face off with that fear, and you gotta make sure that that fear cannot influence your life in any way. And that's the thing, the emotion that you have to change.
I came with this thing called perform without purpose. And so many people, they need to have a 5K, a 10K. I need to have a course in front of me. I need to have something in front of me for me to get my fucking ass up and do something. And that used to be me. And nowadays, for past 20-some years, I don't need fucking purpose. And people miss out on this, man. The purpose, we're all looking for this golden purpose. Is it this? Is it that? Is it making money? Is it my family? Motherfucker, the purpose is you. We forget that. Every fucking day I wake up and I don't want to do some fucking shit. I'm like, okay, man, do you want to be a bitch today? Do you want to feel like a little bitch? Do you want to walk around all day knowing that you could, but you didn't? So it's perform without purpose. You have to learn how to get up and do shit when you ain't got no fucking 5K, no 10K, nothing. Nothing exists. Your life fucking sucks. You're in the fucking dungeon. But guess what, motherfucker? I'm still going to get it. Because when that time comes, because the time is going to come, when that purpose is there, you'll be ready. But most of us fucking aren't ready because we don't know how to do without having the golden carrot in front of us.
Well, that's one of the reasons why we teach people that the reason that we use meditation is not to heal or to create success or whatever, or abundance, or to have a mystical experience, but we use meditation as a way to change, right? And so to become conscious of those unconscious thoughts that you think when you're feeling fear, it's so important to become so conscious that you don't go unconscious to those thoughts. Again, in other words, just because you have a thought doesn't necessarily mean it's true, right? And if the anxiety and the worry and the fear is something that you experience on a daily basis, then in meditation, you have to become so conscious that you don't go unconscious and let that fear run you. And then how do you behave? Do you stay up and ruminate over those what-if scenarios in your life? You have to become so conscious that you don't go unconscious and fall back into that habit again.
That's right. And as you get better at that moment, the moment becomes less and less. So my moments now are like, oh, I ran today, I went to the gym today, I did this and this today, I studied today. I have about 8 hours off. And those 8 hours are glorious to me. And every day you go back out and you start earning that. And every day you wake up, it sucks. And when it's over, you feel better. It sucks, you feel better. And as you get going, as every step you take in that journey, as you're like, for me, I run every day. I can hate it. But every step I take, I'm like, all right, motherfucker, you're beating the demon again.
And so the act of remembering and not forgetting in your meditation is exactly how you change, right? So then that unlearning process, there's only part of it. Then there's a relearning process. Like you have to break the habit of the old self, but then you have to reinvent the new self. So in your meditation, to become familiar with the way you think, to become familiar with the way you act, to become familiar with the way you feel. The word meditation means to become familiar with, to know thyself. And then in the reinvention process, what do I want to think? Let me remember how I do want to think in that situation and change in that moment and think different thoughts. And the only way I'm going to be able to think those different thoughts is not when I'm struggling in those emotional states. I have to program my brain in my meditation to begin to think in a different way. What do I want to believe? And a belief is just a thought you keep thinking over and over again. So with intention and with your attention, let me remember what I do want to believe. And if you keep thinking that thought over and over again, nerve cells that fire together wire together. You begin to install the hardware in your brain. But that's not enough. You have to do it enough times that those circuits begin to fire more automatically. They begin to hardwire.
Neuroplasticity is the most impressive feature of the human brain. It can rewire itself. But when you're a kid, you rewire in response to a passive experience, for better or worse. As an adult, you can rewire your brain, but you have to create the milieu, the environment that the brain wants to rewire itself. So these neuromodulators like adrenaline or dopamine or serotonin, they need to be spiked.
And now that becomes the new voice in your head. How do I want to behave, or how do I want to act when I'm feeling fear? What is an alternative? What does greatness look like? What would be loving to myself? Let me sit up in that state when I'm feeling that fear, and let me go into it and let me change it, right? So let me rehearse in my mind. Let me review how I'm going to behave. Mental rehearsal, the act of closing your eyes and choosing a different behavior. The research shows if you're truly present, the brain does not know the difference between the real life experience and what you're imagining. So the brain begins to fire and wire new circuits to look like you already did the act, right? Keep doing it and it becomes a software program, and it's more easy for you to behave that way because you've primed the brain. In other words, if you don't prime the brain and you're struggling, you have no circuitry to use.
I had a choice to make. And the choice was, growing up, okay, this hurts, that hurts. We can just sit down and do nothing. Or we can see how far we can push the human body. So on that journey, as I started getting more and more into my mind and start realizing that what I'm capable of doing, my mind got stronger. So the pain in my knees, while it sucked, I've been doing it for so long. It was like it became my new norm. Like, okay, my knees hurt. Okay, stop. And I call it like stop feeling sorry for yourself. But you sometimes have to ignore your feelings.
I think emotions can either keep us anchored to the past when we're memorized by those emotions, but also emotions are actually what drive us. It's the energy to create a new future, right? And if you're lazy or lethargic or uninspired, or you've lost initiative, or you have a desire for sameness, or you're not creative in any way, because the only way that we actually really believe in a future is when we feel the emotion of that future. It's really hard to believe in a future when you're feeling the emotion of the past. In fact, many people will continuously tell the story of their past when they're feeling the emotions of the past. So that's what we do in our events. Well, they're 7-day retreats, and the first couple days are very uncomfortable. I tell the audience, you're going to come right up against yourself, and you're going to sit, and you can't grab your cell phone, and you can't open your eyes, and you're going to have to face off with yourself, and we give them something to do.
And here's the deal. A colleague of mine at Stanford, Joe Parvizi, he's a neurosurgeon. He's in there stimulating different brain areas, including anterior mid-cingulate cortex and areas near it, in human patients while they're awake, preparing them for neurosurgery for other reasons. Stimulates anterior mid-cingulate cortex. And what do all people who have their anterior mid-cingulate cortex report? They feel like there's something about to happen. Something's kind of looming, a challenge, a storm. Some will report it as a storm or a physical challenge, but their overall sensation is one that they want to lean into it. They want to challenge it. Now, this area has subsequently been imaged in people who are successful dieters. It grows larger. In people that fail at a dieting or nutrition program, it gets smaller. People that embrace a new form of exercise, and here's the key point, that they don't want to do, this area gets bigger. People that are just doing things that they enjoy doing does not change in shape or size. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. The anterior midcingulate cortex is larger in volume in a group of people called super-agers. Okay, that's a bit of a misnomer because it implies they age faster. They actually age more slowly as it relates to cognitive decline. The slope of cognitive decline is not as steep in these people, meaning they're holding on to cognitive abilities longer than other people into older age. And the universal quality among these superagers is not just a larger anterior midcingulate cortex, but that they challenge themselves to do things that are challenging and they kind of don't want to do or really don't want to do. So when we hear, oh, people should do crossword puzzles to maintain their memory, probably good to keep some cognitive flexibility going. But if you love crossword puzzles, you're not going to grow your anterior midcingulate cortex.
Right.
If you love 45 degrees in the cold plunge after an hour-long run in the hills, which I do, probably not going to do much to grow this area. If you really don't want to do something and you do it, this area gets bigger. And it's got inputs and outputs from all of these different brain areas that make all of this make sense, like the dopamine system, like the learning and memory system, like the areas of the brain that say, no, I'm going to retreat from that. It's aversive, but you push yourself to do something that you don't want to do. This area gets bigger. And the best part is it translates to an ability to do harder things elsewhere.
By the second day, normally, maybe the third day in some groups, there's this huge transformation that starts taking place until they finally sat down and said, I got to look at myself. And when people really are willing to see what's beyond this emotion, what's beyond this belief, what's beyond this behavior, I'm going to sit and I'm going to work on overcoming myself. It is the overcoming process that we discovered that is the becoming process. And when people reach the middle of their life, 35, 40 years old, 95% of who they are by that age is a set of memorized subconscious programs. So the only way you're going to become conscious of your unconscious self is to catch yourself going unconscious. And every time you catch yourself going unconscious and you become conscious, that you get more conscious and get better at catching yourself from going unconscious. So we discovered that the brain changes the most when you reach that point where you don't want to go any further. And you just don't think you can. And when you go a little further, that's when the brain changes the most, because you're leaving the familiar territory, you're leaving the known, and you're stepping into the unknown.
Do hard things, it will give you an ability to do other hard things. But if you love doing deadlifts, honestly, even sets to failure on those deadlifts, enjoy them, benefit from them, all the wonderful things that come with doing deadlifts, great. But you should probably also do something that you don't enjoy doing if you have an interest in the kind of benefits that we're talking about.
Our minds are like a fucking garage. And the garage, if you open a garage and it's all cluttered up, it's all fucked up, you can't put your car in there. You got fucking boats and you got fucking kids' toys and shit everywhere. But if you organize that fucking garage and you put everything in its rightful spot, you can put that car in there. You can put 2 cars in there. You can put bikes in there. And that's like with the mind. People talk about discipline and determination and, repetitions and all this shit. Consistency. Why people fall off the wagon so often is because their mind is full of shit. There's no room in that mind for discipline. There's no room for consistency. They may do it once or twice, but then the mind takes over and that cluttered fucking garage comes in. And then it's like a circuit breaker, man. A circuit breaker just overloads and fucking sparks. And our minds, that's our mind, man. It's like a fucking circuit breaker that has so much shit in it, you keep on loading it, you can't put any more into it. So I talk about it in there, man, so much about clearing space in your fucking mind so then you have room for all those discipline, waking up early, taking those, because they do mean something. But we don't get to that fucking dark matter that is keeping you from clearing out that mental garage.
And they understand the information, and then they have to teach that information to the person next to them. They have to teach it back to someone. They have to remind themselves of what they learned. And if they can remind themselves what they learned, nerve cells that fire together, wire together, right? And if nothing is left to conjecture, to superstition, to dogma, and the person understands exactly what they're doing and why they're doing it, the how gets easier. When the how gets easier, because they understand the what and the why, they assign meaning to the task. And when they assign meaning to the task, they switch on their prefrontal cortex, the boss of the brain. And the boss of the brain wants an outcome. I'm doing this intentionally because I want an outcome. I'm doing this with intention. the hardest part about change is not making the same choice as you did the day before. And to unstick yourself means you have to move from the known to the unknown. And when you step into the unknown, it's unpredictable. There's a lot of uncertainty. Things aren't familiar. You're not in the past any longer. And many people would rather cling to their suffering or their challenging life than to take a chance and possibility because they don't know what that would bring for them. So they stay there. Because the unknown is a scary place for them. It turns out the unknown is the perfect place to create from. It is the place that we actually can create something new from. We can't create anything new from the known.
And so many people just want it the easy way. I'm sorry, man. It's not. So what they start to do is they build this narrative of it's okay. When the narrative should be, you need to fucking work harder. You need to fucking discipline your mind better. We need to help people more than just saying it's okay. It's okay that you're not willing to fucking help yourself out. That's not okay. It's not okay. It's not acceptable. Even though it's your life, if that's acceptable, that's unacceptable. And there's a lot of people in this world, me included, that if I accepted that, I wouldn't be anywhere. So yeah, a lot of people just, they start creating a narrative about themselves that make it okay. The ultimate get out of jail free card. And now the world is set up to have so many get out of jail free cards. Everything is okay. And you can't say a motherfucking thing about it.
So then the second reason really is just those very strong addictive emotions. Like the person may be using, let's say they're addicted to fear, right? And they may be using a person or a situation in their life to reaffirm their addiction to that emotion, right? And in time, they become addicted to a life that they don't even like, right? And that's why change is so hard, because with any addiction, you overdose, there's bad trips, there's rehab. And when you're overcoming some type of an addiction, the body is really craving something, right? And so many people can't move past the addiction to that emotion until it gets really bad. And for many people, for human nature it's got to get so bad where it's intolerable, where they finally say, I have to make another choice. They'll say, hey, I started doing the work. I'm sleeping better. I have less pain. I have more energy. I feel happier. I feel better, but my scans and my blood tests really haven't changed much. They don't go, oh my God, it's not going to work for me. What they say is, okay, what am I doing here? What am I missing? Oh my God, every time I do my meditation, I feel great, but then I see my ex, or I see my coworker, or I see my mother-in-law, or I see my father, or my brother, or whatever, and I react. If I'm reacting and feeling the same emotion, I just defaulted. I return back to my old self, and it's seamless. Because the moment you feel that emotion, when you react, you behave as if you're in your past, and you believe in your past. And it's so seamless that we can go unconscious in a matter of seconds.
I take snapshots. So every time I'm in a bad situation, I study it. And that's the only reason I do half the shit I do, is I'm studying this shit. Because I know that I never thought I was going to be writing books and trying to help people get better. But I was always trying to do it because I knew I sucked. And so when you know you're trying to get somewhere, you know you suck, you know that you believe that you're a born loser, you are taking snapshots, man. You see something on your phone, like, oh man, I'm gonna take a fucking snapshot of that, or how you do the little picture shit so you can save it on your phone. I do that in my mind. So when I get in these moments where I'm like, okay, wow, that's some fucking good knowledge right there, man. I snapshot it because I know that I can use that later. I can use this because I'm not out there most people, they go out and they run and they go out and they do, and they're like, oh, this is beautiful. Look at the fucking mountains and the and all this bull. No, I don't like it. My body hurts. I'm hurting. How do we get through this? And it's a lab. It's my mental lab. And so when I come home, I'm not forgetting it. And the second, like every day I get done running, or every day I get through working, or every day I get through studying, whatever it is that brings me to that place of knowledge, I come home and that book was mostly written on a scratch piece of paper in hand. So I come home from running and I write everything out.
If you're serious about a better life, you would run through a list of things that were really important to you, and remember to think that way, remember to feel that way, remember to behave that way the next day, or even better, how did I do today? How was my day? When did I react? When did I lose my patience? When did I get frustrated? When did I move out of balance? Did I blame the person or circumstance? Was I greater than that? Okay, another day, another lifetime, another chance. My mother used to say, new day, right? Another day. How am I going to be if I had the same circumstance in my life, right? What's a better way for Raj to be or Joe to be the next day? Let me remind myself that I could be that way tomorrow. I promise you, if you're sincere, just for 3 weeks of doing that, you'll naturally surprise yourself. Like, wow, I really didn't react to that person. Wow, I noticed that I was way more calm. I noticed that the person that normally pushes my buttons, I didn't feel that.
Discipline is the only thing that changes your DNA, man.
This is the only thing.
Only thing, man. You could be fucking so f***ed up. And I realized that, man. I was like, man, the only thing that changed my DNA is discipline. It's the only thing.
I've incorporated a new thing that I was telling you, where I get up first thing in the morning, I get in the cold plunge. Because I was doing the cold plunge after I did the sauna, and it's a little easier because the sauna sucks.
Right.
But, you know, when that 20 minutes is up or 25 minutes is up, and then you get in that cold, the cold sucks, but it doesn't suck as much as when you're cold, and then you get in the cold. So when I wake up in the morning, I don't dress warm.
Right.
I wear my fucking underwear, and I go outside, and it's 40 degrees this morning, and I walk out, and I lift the lid on that Morozgo cold plunge, and I see the fucking ice floating up in there. Every day, I climb in.
That's brutal.
And I just get in there for 3 minutes in the morning, and then I work out.
So the evening and the morning are 2 times in the day where the door opens up. You know, your brain waves go from beta to alpha to theta to delta in the evening. When you wake up in the morning, you know, you go from delta to theta to alpha to beta. So there's 2 times where the door between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind opens. And people, I mean, the people in my life that do this, they take their time before they go to bed. They write things down that are important to them, things they want to change. They don't want to watch TV or get on their device. They really want to invest in themselves. Maybe like nothing changes in our life until we change. And change is the most constant thing in the universe. And you could either wait for the crisis, the trauma, the diagnosis to change. You know, when you're at your lowest level, you can learn and change in a state of pain and suffering, or you can learn and change in a state of joy and inspiration. Either way, the model is that when you change, your life changes. So if you can invest a little time in your life in asking yourself the important question, who do I want to be in my life? How do I want to live my life? What do I want in my life? And instead of turning on your cell phone and getting distracted, discipline yourself to take an hour to answer those questions. Write it down, review it, change it, get very clear on it, and spend a certain amount of time nurturing whatever that dream is. Think of the people in your life that you admire and start behaving differently, start making different choices. Think about the choices that they may make and how you may want to make those choices.